Bitcoin's questionable pump comes down just as fast as it went up, and we're right back where we were for pretty much all of August, actually, now in the first day of September. And there's actually plenty to speak about with regards to September and what to kind of expect, especially based off of last night's monthly closure. Anyways, other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. Nice little Friday morning over here for the first day of September. It's the birthday sale going on right now, although, well, it's actually not my birthday. It'll be tomorrow. So all good. But as always, if you're interested in any one of the programs or products, please make sure that you watch the promotional videos to make sure that you understand, what essentially is included, what essentially it is that you're looking at. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right into it, starting off with the monthly. So last night we closed for August, or not we, but Bitcoin closed for August, and we have our first tick here on the September good old candle. Sorry, I can't help myself. But yeah, in this case, of course, did close back down below that yellow moving average. Just a 20 simple width in this regard. Very simplistic piece of analysis here. But basically, anytime that Bitcoin's been above it, generally good, especially when it does have a positive slope. And when Bitcoin's below it, especially when it has a negative slope, generally good for the bear-ahs in that case. So as you can see right here, still with a downside slope. And yes, Bitcoin did close about, where did it exactly close? Yeah, about $1,500 below it. So fair enough. What does that mean for September? It means that September probably at best going to be sideways, maybe with a high somewhere around that 20 simple, which is currently just below $27,000, and a low of who knows where as of right now. Now, the next biggest thing that I do want to be aware of is, of course, going to be the weekly, which is closing today for CME. And as it is right now, we do see that there is a nice emphatic rejection of that same moving average, the 20 simple, in kind of a similar posture as well, which is, which was one of the major things that we were looking at earlier this week, coming off of that pump. Hey, if Bitcoin's going to reject, this is the fucking place. This is the place, man. I think that was on Wednesday's video, and well, so far it's rejected. Now, with that in mind, as long as Bitcoin is below basically this week's high, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't pump back up above about 28,300 before the end of today, which I think is rather unlikely, then this would actually be a very good reversal point, meaning that if Bitcoin can just trade above this week's high, that's at the point where really I'd be looking for Bitcoin to make that next big leg up into the shallow 30s, probably even beyond from there as well. But until then, this is the major error to be aware of as far as I'm concerned. That is a very obvious rejection. And as long as Bitcoin's living below there, yeah, pressure still does exist to the downside, obviously. Now, with that said, I do want to bring you back on over here to 2019, because it was a eerily similar piece of price action coming off of the last cycle. Again, Bitcoin puts in the lows here in December of 2018, then spends the early half of 2019 rallying up in a pretty, very impressive rally. This one going all the way from like 4,000 to 14,000 bucks, then spends the summer going sideways, consolidating at the highs. Sounds very familiar. And then we get that first close below the 20 simple, pop back up, retest, reject right at it, down for slightly new lows, and then back up again. And then, of course, you might call that a black swan a little bit later, but ultimately, this price action over here, if we were to get rid of that black swan, just forget that it happened and operate off of closures on, let's say, like a monthly, you can see that is more or less sideways, actually. So I think that kind of, helps get rid of a lot of the noise there. Not necessarily that it is noise, like obviously it does matter, but if you're looking at the very long-term trend, I think that kind of helps. So in this case, the weekly, yeah, as long as you're below there, I mean, this does look pretty fucking similar, right? Lows in basically December of 2022, November, December, first half of 2023 rallies all the way up, breaks below the 20 simple right here, retest a few weeks later, boom, reject, and like we saw over here, slightly new lows were printed after that, actually. Slightly new lows below the low of, before that rally, basically. So what essentially could that look like? That could mean that Bitcoin comes down maybe somewhere around like 24,800 to 25,000 bucks, and still kind of maintain that relationship. So I do think that September is personally speaking, I don't think that things are actually going to like break down significantly here. I do think that things will more or less be sideways on the monthly, and we probably see a range, somewhere between here. Sorry, not that high. Whereas 27, 27 is right there. Maybe some like this. And if you see Bitcoin go sideways throughout, especially like the first few weeks of September, I'd look at that as a really, 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 really powerful signal that Bitcoin is set in a base here, while everyone's seemingly gets just as bearish as they were bullish, based off of that, 1 day pump. Now we have a 1 day dump. I'd kind of be looking at the same thing. So it's going to be, I suspect that it's going to be another very nuanced September, if you will. And just one of those times that just really tests your patience. If you're around, over in this time as well, sorry, let me just get rid of all this shit. This was an incredibly time testing patience testing time. Dyslexia is a hell of a drug, man. Especially this area right here, by the way, and this area right here. I remember hanging on to these lows. I remember this area right here from like April to July, and then even that move, just fucking mind-numbingly boring. As things go sideways, literally in in like a few hundred or like $1,000 range, going down to like a few $100 range for 4 or 5 months there. So in this case, do I think that Bitcoin can kind of do the same thing? Yeah, I do think that Bitcoin can kind of do the same thing. Obviously, there's a very clear invalidation, basically with any sort of a move lower than what we saw on the June lows here, which was 24,745. Below there, then yeah, I mean, have to really reconsider. It's not just that I reconsider that priority. It's like that idea is wrong, and very likely we see, much further down, probably 22, 23 at least, maybe even 21. So yeah, all right, so we've gone through that. Just also on that side, a little bit more statistically based, I do want to get into this over here, or actually it's literally on the same chart. So so we'll just go back here and we'll go over here. And again, just looking at all the Septembers, let me get rid of this, not relevant towards this explanation, but just looking at all the prior Septembers, referenced by these green vertical bars, we can see that Bitcoin, just at a glance of an eye, has mostly had negative returns on September. If you want numbers on it, I've gone through each and every one and found that only 4 of the prior 13 Septembers did have a positive close. And when we really dial in on that data, it's like, except for one, all of these were low single digit gains, if that. So basically sideways, like at best. There was one outlier right here. That was the 3rd September Bitcoin ever saw for a over 22% return. But Bitcoin was also trading at $10 during that time. So bit of a different time, you might say. Anyways, going back into it, what does that mean? It means that I think, again, at best, Bitcoin goes sideways here, with a high somewhere around 27, with a low, well, judging the best case scenario for the low is a little bit more difficult, but, can go as low as 24.8, let's say, without, invalidating anything for the very long term. And of course, if we look at the negative returns for all of the down months, which would, which 70% of the time it was a down month, basically, it was negative 1280, basically almost 13%. So now that we do have the official close for August in, what would, if Bitcoin goes for the average 13% down, look like? That would put Bitcoin, between about 22 to 23,000 bucks. So that'd be sort of the next area of interest, if Bitcoin does drop below, again, the June lows, at least for the way that I look at things. Next sort of area of interest based off of prior quantitative data over here. Anyway, speaking of quantitative data, let's go ahead and reference the HPDR range indicators, the HPDR range indicator. And let's actually start off with the daily, because I think the daily got this one incredibly well. What do we see? We saw, again, a rejection right at the average on that pump. Bitcoin comes back down to the bottom side of the 50% historic returns range lows, which does make me apprehensive to be calling continuation from here just yet. If I bring up my indicators, do we have anything of particular interest? I'm not getting anything from either of these, so I'm led to believe, probably more sideways in the near term. 4-hour time frame is bouncing off at the bottom side of the 80% of historic returns range lows. Let's see what volatility looks like right now. Still expanding here, so I suppose this move could still go on, but if you don't see this move, continue within, I would say, before end of day. This one's going to be pretty damn hard, but I'd say either end of day, maybe Saturday, we will start to see volatility contract, and we will start to see directional volatility turn up a little bit. So I'd be looking for a bit of mean reversion, maybe a move back up to 26.5. But remember, at least in my opinion, the way that I look at things, upside very likely going to be limited during the month of September. Again, I think at best case scenario, we see a sideways month more or less. Anyways, moving on to stochastic momentum, the monthly is starting to wane a little bit in momentum here. We do see that the current momentum pivot is at 22,200. So let's just play out like worst case scenario here. What if Bitcoin does fail this region, does come down, and maybe even come down around something that's relevant to the September statistics over here? Well, that would put it within striking distance, certainly for this month and definitely for next month in October, of turning monthly stochastic momentum to the downside. That is where I really would start to entertain the possibilities of Bitcoin still not necessarily setting a new low, like a new low below last year's low, but could very easily come down at that point to 20 or maybe even 19. Definitely possible at that point. So that would be at stake. I think personally speaking, I think it's a low probability, but of course have to have sort of measurements in there for if such things do happen. Weekly time frame, again, for CME closing today, going to very likely continue on with that downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 29,650. 5-day time frame, same shit, closing tomorrow. For spot price action, 29,200, give me the magical number. 2-day time frame is probably going to be up but weak and will turn down below 25,930, which is not too far away. So we might get another one of these quick moves right here. But again, do take note of how of how much it is in the critical zone right there. So it will be difficult to kind of keep that momentum. So maybe we get like a quick move down, maybe slightly new lows, and then pop back up and something like that. And that's where I'd be looking for on the next bounce. And if you start to see that, like maybe around the middle of September, that's where I start to say, hey, this is going to be a bullish reaccumulation. I think right now, at least from what I can gather on Twitter, and it's always difficult because it's like we're all in our own echo chambers, right? But from what I can gather on Twitter, it's like everyone called the downside move and everyone's bearish as fuck. So fair enough. Just like the couple days before, everyone was bullish as fuck. It's like, no, not everyone is one thing. That's just a very egotistical statement. But, you can see how the sentiments change so very quickly. Anyways, daily time frame will turn down below 26,000, currently, right around that region. 12-hour time frame is also turning down freshly below 27,450. It's a long way to go. 6-hour time frame also down below 27,350. 4-hour time frame also down, nosediving below 27. And hourly is going to be having a little poppy-uppy right there for 26. So maybe a little bit of a short-term try for a bounce. And then if Bitcoin is going to continue, I actually would be looking, later today would be a great time for it to do that if bears are going to take control. So we get to play that game again of like, if Bitcoin doesn't move within the next, I would say 2 weeks from now, that's at the point where I'm going to start to say, it's still probably not this month, but things are starting to look better and better for the boulas there as Bitcoin, seemingly kind of digs in with its heels in this region. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. Is there anything else that I want to say? I guess now that we're here at the very, very end for the birthday sale, I do just want to point out what was that one thing? Yeah, the Krown quant automation down here, because that seems to be the one that most people are interested in. Please watch the promotion video that comes along with it. The reason why I say that is because this script will come with, it does come with, pre-built sort of strategies and whatnot that you can implement. But at the end of the day, you are going to be responsible for essentially manipulating the inputs and whatnot to create your own strategies. That is the purpose of it. Ideally, you want to get to your own strategy. Yes, you can use the quant project strategies like a baseline. They'll be a great start, but naturally, you're going to kind of evolve into your own style. So I just want to say that it's a little bit more for like the person who's more confident in their sort of individualistic creative abilities in that regard. So I will leave things right there. And yeah, as always, wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Saturday.